Hey all, and welcome back to the Curator's cut of Ban of Medan. I meant to say Curator, it came out as Curator, and, well, words are hard, I guess. In my defense, it's very cold right now, and I'm in my dressing gown, so I'm not exactly in LP mode, but, hey, at least we've already met all these characters, so I don't have to be in super fine form to, describe them all to you. We have Alex, probably the blandest main character I've seen in an adventure game in a while, and his infinitely more endearing brother, Brad, bringing in the brewskis.
Mm-hmm. So you say that about Alex, but honestly, I find Julia less interesting than Alex.
Well, yeah.
Alex, at least, he seems likeable, even if he doesn't have much to him, whereas Julia, she's not a bad person or anything, I don't mean it like that, but she just seems a bit she's there.
Well, Julia has bad jokes and whatnot, which puts anyone at the top of the pile for me, instantly, and so on. If I had to pick my least favourite character out of the cast, not counting the pirates, because that would be cheating, no, it's still Alex. What about you, Rich?
In terms of least favourite character?
Yeah.
It probably would end up being Alex, if only because, obviously, Brad's got sort of the underdog thing going for him. Because he's the nerd, I see myself in him, and so he's the character I associate with. Fliss, she owns a boat, she's sort of by the book, I like that. Conrad is a bit of an asshole, but there seems to be a heart in there, so that's sort of a bit more interesting as a character. Julia's sort of the only other woman on the boat, so they need something going on there. It's not much, but at least it's sort of bit of gender representation. So by process of elimination, it is Alex.
Okay, so just being a woman alone gives her points. Okay.
I think in this game, considering pretty much all of the characters are very bare bones in the grand scheme of things, it does sort of help to have some character at all, and Alex doesn't really have any, so...
I like how Flame tried to knock down your opinion of Julia just because she's a woman when he couldn't actively give a proper reason why Alex is a good character.
Yeah.
I said last time we met up that he's got that likeable, he's the friendly muscle guy, he's the guy who just seems to get on with anyone. He seems like the kind of person who he would be pleasant to talk to and that.
Okay, Flame.
Well, yes, but that doesn't make him an interesting character.
It makes him more likeable than the chick who does nothing.
Okay, fair dues, mate. Can't battle that incel logic, I suppose.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, women rejected me, I can't stand them. No, I'm joking.
Oh, Flame, at least you have a sense of humour, mate. Alright, here come the rich kids, there she is, with a face like a fucking horror show.
Yeah, it's not good. And also, hey, it's the much younger looking Sean Ashmore than he actually is. He's not old, but that's just a really, really sort of shiny, plasticky, young looking face.
It's okay, he's just covered in a layer of ice. He's actually on patrol right now.
It's I mentioned this last time he showed up, but it is so easy to unintentionally compare this model to his one from Quantum Break. Just because, we've now got two CG Sean Ashmores to compare.
Yeah, I don't think that helps.
Flame, briefly explain to me, what was Quantum Break? Was it a similar type of game?
In a way, it has a little bit more gameplay to it, there's a few shooting sections and there's a little bit more going on in terms of gameplay, but it is very much a kind of, you go through a story sort of like this, and the narrative drives it more so than gameplay.
Okay.
I never actually got around to beating it because I sort of lost interest, but maybe I'll go back to it one day.
I mean, I remember, obviously this is completely kind of going off the side, but I think I remember sort of when they were initially sort of trying to sell people on it. There was the whole thing of they were going to have the TV series run alongside it, and then I think that died a death. Because it was going to be things would happen in the game, and then they'd happen in the TV series, and then you'd go back to the game, and all sorts. And I think as an idea, that all sort of collapsed, but the game still came out.
It sounded a bit too ambitious for its own good, honestly.
Yeah.
Cartoon-wise, there's a show called OKKO, which has since ended its run, and that was like a whole planned thing of like video games and comics and the TV show and whatnot. Didn't really happen as it wanted, and the final season had a lower episode count than they wanted. And when asked about it, Ian JQ, who did work with Rebecca Sugar on Steven Universe before going off to make OKKO, when asked what was the most surprising thing about working on the show, was that they were cancelled and so on.
That's sad.
Yeah, like there is this whole thing of knowing what you got to work with, and when a network or a third party kind of cuts that short, you kind of left fucked over trying to pick up the pieces.
True.
But yeah, when you see a series like what we've got here of an anthology, it does make me a little bit nervous, knowing that obviously this is a lower production value than what Supermassive have done before with Until Dawn. Like, I do hope that they can actually keep the anthology going past what we've seen already.
I think that you are right on that. I think the issue that we've got with this is that because it looks and feels notably lower budget, it doesn't have quite the same pop and bang, so it hasn't had quite the same success as Until Dawn did. Obviously, once against the Until Dawn comparison, but because of that, it suggests that they might have sort of diminishing returns as they go along in the series if they don't have anything if they don't sort of improve from Man and Medan. Because I think, from what I can tell, the general reaction has been one of, it's okay.
Yeah.
It hasn't been the same sort of love that Until Dawn got. So if it maintains itself, I can see that it's sort of selling less and less as the anthology goes on. If, however, they start to improve it, then they have a chance, but it will depend entirely on what they do next as to exactly whether it succeeds or not as an anthology.
Also, not to put all of the success on, like, celebrities and so on, because Until Dawn was just a well-made game, even without them, but Until Dawn had Peter Stormare, it had Hayden Panettiere, it had Rami Malek. What the fuck does Man of Medan have? Sean Ashmore?
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Come on, what is this, kindergarten?
There's that, and also I feel like the marketing for this game in general was basically non-existent. Like, it crept up on me because I knew they were working on a new thing, and then next time I heard about it was like a fortnight before it came out. So
yeah,
yeah,
I remember that as well. Like, I just remember there being sort of nothing. Then there was sort of like a 2-week blitz of Man of Medan sort of everywhere, and then it vanished. And I mean, you can't help it. You've got your marketing budgets. You kind of have to try and maximise it. And I'd say if you're going to put it anywhere, sort of the first 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks leading up to release and a bit after are sort of going to be your key areas of going, look, this is coming out soon. Buy it now it's out. If you've not got much money to sort of throw around. But I think that because of the way that the gaming industry is, you can do much cheaper advertising a lot sooner by just sort of drip feeding bits to the internet, and then if people are interested, they will pick it up and start going over it, and that's how you sort of build up that word of mouth, which helps with hype. And if you don't go along that route, then you do tend to struggle getting any attention, because in general, video games are such a saturated market, even if there aren't as many tentpole games coming out every month as there used to be.
Yeah, I will say, although in general I do not like console exclusivity, I find it very anti-consumer, and you get locked into a system that's not as good as my PC. That's basically why I'm bitter about it. But one thing I can say for Sony is that they are very good at marketing their exclusives. Like, Until Dawn benefited from that, so have a lot of their other big games over the last year. Like, you think how much hype they built up for, say, God of War and Spider-Man and stuff like that. And like, so that is where they've suffered. They've kind of had to handle that themselves this time around, and they probably weren't really equipped for that.
No.
But I do want to draw us back to the awkward flirting, because we get to have a bit more control over it this time.
Hey, I like it when you're strict.
Boy.
And sometimes I just want to be kept in line, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
I wonder how well this is going to work out for him.
And then Fliss is all like, CBT. You get the picture?
No, don't, Tom, explain.
Step 2. ball stretcher.
Get them tuckers at work.
Hey.
These rules are all pretty basic stuff.
So yeah, Richie wasn't kidding when he said Fliss is like by the book and whatnot. She will punch a hole through your head if you do not pay homage to Poseidon, god of the seas!
Not quite, but she doesn't seem that receptive to Conrad, although to be fair, who would be?
I was gonna say, like, would you, Richie?
Well, definitely. One, I don't swing that way anyway, but also, I think when you're in that position of, I'm captain of a ship, and I've just met you, and you're flirting with me, very obviously, despite the fact that, you know, your sister's just down the boat, and you don't know me, no, sod off, mate, that's inappropriate, go away.
Jesus. I very nearly called him Sean there, Jesus Christ.
I'm sure this is like one role that he wouldn't like to be confused with his real life. Just saying.
Yikes.
You know, that's something that we didn't really talk about, but I think is sort of an interesting thing, is when you have a game like this where, I mean, Sean Ashmore is basically the only name to speak of, and he's the only character designed after himself. You sort of do end up in that situation of going, well, it's Sean Ashmore. You don't think, oh, that's Conrad. You think that's Sean Ashmore. And it was somewhat the same in Until Dawn, largely because Hayden Panettiere was basically, well, that's Hayden. But it's a thing whenever they put celebrities in games, is I don't think that they necessarily always do enough to change the look and feel of the character design, and so you do just look at them and see the celebrity and don't see the character. And it's a thing that happens in films as well, where you have certain actors who are able to sort of blend into their roles, and then other times it's literally just like, well, yes, that's Melissa McCarthy, or that's just Hugh Jackman, and so on and so forth. And it can be detrimental, but equally, depending on who it is, it can be fine.
Well, that's where I kind of benefit from just being completely out of the loop with TV and films. I usually don't know who an actor is until they show up in the game. So, like, to me, this can potentially be an actor's defining role. Yeah.
In Until Dawn, and I know I said we were going to tone down the comparisons, but fuck it, you know, why put restrictions on commentary and whatnot?
Exactly.
In that game, I think Peter Stormare and Rami Malek's characters, was it Josh?
Yes.
Okay, it was Josh. They got so into their roles, I kind of forgot who it was playing them. It did help a bit that I hadn't seen anything with Rami Malek before. I know he's in, like, Mr. Robot and whatnot, and Peter Stormare has done, like, a bunch of stuff. But I was separated enough from the other characters they played over the years to get fully engrossed. But Hayden Panettiere was just Hayden Panettiere. You know,
yeah.
She's the girl, she's snarky, and that's about it. Really. I can say, though, I do feel a bit sorry for her, where, you know, on the run-up to Kingdom Hearts 3, like...
Yeah.
She was like, nobody's contacted me. And, you know, Jesse McCartney of Roxas Inventors said the same thing, but that turned out to be a ruse. With Hayden, it was actually factual.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, the only thing I can think of with that one is, like, potentially there was a conversation with her agents that didn't get to her. Like, it might have been a scheduling thing, they thought she was too busy with something. Or it might have just been, we've spent all the money everywhere else, we can't afford her as well. Which I think is probably a stupid argument if that is what happened, but that's besides the point.
Sometimes with this, I don't know if it's the case with her, but quite often you get a case where in an original project they get actors and actresses who are like up and coming, but then by the time there's a later entry coming out, then by that point the particular actors made it and they're worth a lot more now and their agents are asking for more money, and so they might have outgrown the role financially.
Basically what we can say is God bless Haley Joel Osment for never really making it hyper big.
I'm gonna go see what Fliss is up to.
I think the other thing that probably did affect that is because they had a few games where Alison Stoner had voiced Kyrie because she was already in there voicing like Shion. So because they'd already introduced that thing of the characters flip-flopping, because also for some reason Hayden Panettiere voiced Shion in, I think it was Dream Drop Distance.
For reasons.
So like, because they'd already had that sort of different actors playing that role, it wasn't quite so much of a difficult thing as if, they'd had to try and replace Haley Joel Osment after having him voice the character in every game for the entire series.
Indeed. Words and so on and so forth. So we're still diving with Julia no matter what. That's a shame. I was hoping for a bit of brother bonding with Brad, but he's still beleaguered. I'm sorry, I was trying to carry on the B string of words.
Yeah, no, this particular scene is basically the same. It will be toward the end of the diving scene where we get a cutaway to something new. So for this, we just sort of got to play it by ear and just keep on doing what we were doing.
Okay.
And I suppose this is one of the main set pieces of the early game, so they kind of can't really skip over it.
Uh-huh.
I'm not quite sure how this works in multiplayer. I would assume that maybe one person takes on Julia and the other one controls Alex, and maybe he's just given some supplementary lines.
Yeah, the playthrough I watched was a multiplayer one. It just basically brings up a prompt screen and says, "Oh, it's your turn," because you can enter your name and whatnot.
Yeah, that's the one where it's encouraging you to pass the controller around.
Yeah, basically.
I know Hidden Agenda had a similar kind of thing, one of the Supermassive Games' other games that they did between Until Dawn and this, but the reason why I never really clicked for that one is that rather than using the DualShock, which, is an established control scheme that every fucking game has used for years now, they decided to use the Uplay Link thing. So basically you just make all your decisions on your phone, which is really inconvenient.
Yeah.
And I played a chapter or so into that, and it was just I weren't feeling it,
Let's swim around a little and find a way.
No, that's totally fair. I suppose, whilst we're going through stuff that we've sort of already seen, maybe sort of bring up, so obviously I mentioned the whole thing about the Salem witch trials link that there's multiple reference to it throughout. One of them is Conrad's tank top, it says Salem on it. Obviously also in this part we saw the book that Julia has, which is Shroud of Innocence.
Oh, right.
Innocence. And the review quote on the upper part of the cover reads, "A must-read for anyone with an interest in the Salem witch trials of 1692.
Boy, I love Little Hope and I can't wait to play it.
I know. And then the last one is that one of the dead American soldiers on the Orang Medan was called Arthur Miller, which most likely is a reference to Arthur Miller, aka the playwright who wrote The Crucible, which is about the Salem witch trials.
No, I thought you were going to say there was actually a character called Salem Witch Trial.
I know, I mean, I was going to mention that one, but I just thought it was so obvious.
Oh, bless you, Rich.
But yeah, so those are, it's only 3 references, so it's not really multiple. It is multiple, but it's not too many. But the fact that there are that many references to a single thing would imply that it has some relation. I know that, dropping, my book in there, the Burning Ash, available on Amazon right now. One of the things that I know I do is sort of try and drop in hints at sort of where I'm going next. In that one, it's not so much a hint as pretty much here's an entire chapter relating to that main character. But that sort of I like doing that as well, and it is always a fun thing to do. I just hope that is what the references to the Salem witch trials are for. Otherwise, there is literally no reason for them to be here.
Just judging by the Little Hope teaser, it seems that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact, you kind of get that vibe, even if they're not going to be retelling that particular story, there's going to be that kind of influence from, all the forester, areas, and the fucking nooses in the guy's fucking office, which, not unsettling at all,
By the by, we found an anti-air bullet back there, which basically semi-confirms for me that they got basically coked out of their mind on the Medan, thanks to the poo gas, and they were just firing at what they thought were probably dragons in the sky or whatever.
I would love to see those hallucinations. Going off back on all what we said about how we wanted the game to be set post World War II in the first part, if only for that reason, just see what was fucking with these guys so much that they decided to shoot planes out of the sky.
I think that might have also been sort of a really interesting take for the horror, because obviously what is going to scare you during a war is very different to what is going to scare you as a 20-something in the noughties and the 2010s.
Well, just to clarify, a dragon would fucking scare me any day of the week, Richie.
Yes, but you know what I mean, in the sort of, we're more, zombies, creepy things.
Oh, fuck
eels.
I knew it was coming, I didn't know the microsecond it was going to appear on the screen, so I second-guessed myself.
But obviously, when you're in the middle of a war, like, how does your fear kind of present itself? I would have been interested to see that.
But no, we don't have the budget for that, so, zombies are fine, I guess. Seeing things are not there, whatever, it's cool.
This stuff's been down here a long time.
What I am curious about, though, with Little Hope coming, is that they can't really do the whole fake-out thing again.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder how they're gonna tie in, like, supernatural things or just something scary in a way that they then have to explain and own. They can't just write it off as, well, it was a hallucination.
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo and the Witch's gas.
Yeah, I mean, that would be particularly awful, because you categorically cannot use the same thing again as the reason for the horror. Like, they can't use gas again. The only time that you can ever do something like that is if you're in a sort of meta horror experience. So I think something like, I think the Scream films do something very similar.
Yeah.
Each time. But that makes sense because it's playing with the idea of horror and joking about it. When you're sort of actually trying to create horror, doing the same thing twice, it's just like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me once, shame on me, and it's... Or is it the other way around?
It's fool me twice, shame on me, Richie.
Yeah, I honestly don't care anymore. But it is that whole thing of, it just isn't as effective, and it just seems like a cop-out, and so just don't do that.
Yeah, well, it's that. And the other thing that I'm thinking about Little Hope is I hope there is kind of a... not over-the-top obvious link to Man of Medan. Like, obviously it's going to be set somewhat in a similar setting, given we know the curator's going to be overseeing it like he does with this.
Yes.
But it would be nice if there were some links one way or another, like maybe in the notes we find around, if there's some kind of allusion to the Medan or something like that, just to kind of tie them up so they're in the same universe, even if they're not interlinked explicitly.
No, I get that. I think that is sort of the thing that you want with anthologies in general, is you want to see sort of that link through, either through theming, or through sort of narrative kind of connections. I suppose it does depend entirely on what type of anthology they're going for, because there's every chance that literally the only connection will be the curator, and the sort of the fact that it's horror related, which it's still an anthology, but I think it would be more effective if they were sort of very much more interconnected in terms of being placed in the same universe and so on, because that's just the way gamers work. We are very, in general, analytical and like to find little mysteries and conspiracy theories in content. It's why you have all those kind of theorists everywhere.
You put that so much more tactfully than I would have.
Yeah. But it's something that we as a community enjoy doing, and I think to sort of meet that need would be a good thing to go for, because it just means that people are going to go for it more.
Now, Conrad brought this up earlier. Is her license fake or not? Because either way, it has no, like, conflict or consequence on the plot at all.
No, it seems like it's implied that her business is not entirely legitimate, and there is the bit of paper that you can find that implies that she's in a lot of debt as well. So, like, she might be struggling to make ends meet and maybe doing some not entirely legitimate work on the side. That's kind of what I take away from it.
Now, if she knew the pirates, that could potentially have closed that. I don't even want to call it a plot hole, just a minor nitpick, really. But as it stands, it's just a thing that sticks out and doesn't really make a lot of sense. But again, it could just be a coincidence. Maybe she is legit.
Yeah, like, it might also just be trying to add a bit more to her character, maybe giving her a bit of a backstory, but it's just not fleshed out well enough.
I think that is something that pretty much follows through the entirety of the game. Is just there's a lot of dropped threads. They don't create any holes in the plot. There's just things that get set up and then never really land anywhere. It's a Chekhov's gun that isn't working because it obviously, for anybody who doesn't know already, Chekhov's gun is a narrative device whereby if a gun is shown in Act 1, then it better get shown in sort of a later act being used, because it's that whole idea of if something's shown, it's important, and therefore it must be used at some point to be satisfying. So for, the license to not really ever come up again is a thing. For this letter to never come up again is a thing. The fact that they don't really do anything with that whole book of the Shroud of Innocence, it's just sort of, it's a thread that's there. It's a gun that sort of suggests that there was something smoking, and just nothing happens, and it's just disappointing.
Interesting how the payable date is the same month that Medan came out.
Oh, is it? I didn't even notice that.
I'm just going to double check that, because I'm pretty sure it was August.
Yeah, I think it was actually, yeah. But I will say, with what Richie's saying there, I feel like there's a bit of an exception when you've got the kind of narrative approach that this game goes for, in that when you've got this mystery sort of thing, especially when it's a horror thing and you're going to want there to be something a little bit unsettling, like, you're going to want a few red herrings to kind of leave more possibilities open.
Yeah.
So the rules, I feel like, kind of work a little bit differently for this compared to a normal linear story.
Yeah, the one thing that I would respond to with that is generally in a mystery where you've got red herrings, you generally have a moment at least some point during it highlighting that it was a red herring.
Yeah.
So you sort of have that point of it going, you thought you had it, you don't anymore. And sort of that's why sort of then they work, because they're, even though they're not a full-on Chekhov's gun, they're playing with the idea of it, and it lands better because it doesn't feel like a thread that's been picked up and then just dropped unceremoniously, very much like Lisa's mum's breast cancer in the room.
Ah, yes, I get it. Also, Medan, initial release date 30th of August 2019. What was the date the money was due by?
Was it 30th of August 2019?
Well, I'm using my short-term memory to the fullest here, but I think it was.
Nice, yeah.
I'll do the talking. Don't mention the divers. Okay, we're being cowards this time.
Do not mention we have people in the water.
What do you think they want?
So yeah, this section I believe is going to be extended a fair bit more than what we saw the first time around.
Oh.
Yeah, they'd have lobster pots under that buoy. I mean, if it's theirs.
I mean, maybe it's our beer delivery.
What? Oh yeah, let me just call for Domino's while we're at it. You fucking you almost said a bad word there. Don't want to get banned on YouTube.
Look, I'm sure if that would get you banned, I would have got us banned like years ago.
Ooh. Almost lost my cool there. Alright, let's have a look at the same still pictures or not. Here they come. Oh, they're coming, lads.
Talking of like whether something's a red herring or whether it's a Chekhov's gun or whatever, these guys, they kind of dip in and out, because to start off with, they seem like they're going to be the villains of sorts, and then you find out once you're on the ship that actually all this weird shit is much more threatening looking than they ever were. But then you find out that that stuff's not real, and so you're just left with these guys chasing you, and it's like, okay, maybe they are the biggest problem we got to deal with. It's kind of a little bit all over the place for that.
Yeah, I think that is sort of the other issue that the game does have, is that it sets you up with a villain and then goes, they're not the villains, but they are. There's only a few situations where you can get away with doing that, and that's sort of when you're showing off that the people who you initially thought were villains but then weren't but then are playing a much longer game. It's not that you've had to sort of just default to them. There's sort of, you've amped up to them again, rather than sort of scaling back, and that is just sort of a disappointing narrative arc.
See, I don't necessarily see this as a problem. Like, I kind of get where you're coming from, but like, it's an observation that I made, and I feel like they just about get away with it here on account of the fact that the pirates never really leave the story. There's no, like, they're doing something all the time, all the way through, even if they're not the main focus at a given moment. So it's like, the game doesn't give you time to forget them, so it's not like a, oh yeah, sudden twist, you know, like, these are the bad guys all along, but they're just not the driving focus. It's more like the hallucinations now are sort of a distraction from them for a point.
Is it me, or did they drive directly into the boat? Was that some sort of scam? Like they were testing to see if there was, like, any rich lads on board, and oh, I guess they found one.
It's a possibility, yeah. Like, just see how they react, see whether they seem like a pushover. But yeah, we're actually getting to play with the barbecue this time.
I'm just reminded of that fucking... Was it the Simpsons thing where Homer keeps spraying the barbecue with just, like, more and more stuff?
When we had the line about there was an incident with a barbecue and we thought they were bluffing last time, it turns out no, they were actually telling the truth.
I didn't disbelieve them, because we could clearly see the barbecue smoking.
Well, yeah, but it did seem like, oh yeah, that wasn't the real issue here, it was the pirates. And I did just see those boys pop in.
It's them boys, two of them.
Hey, what the hell is going on?
Sorry, we tried to have a fry-up and it went tits up. Well, there goes all my Domino's money.
It's fine, you're rich, you can always get some more.
Ah, thank you, Patreon.
That's not a pizza fund, you realise.
When the bills are paid, it sure as fuck is fine.
Whatever. Who cares, right?
Yeah, who cares about anything? Just throw yourself into the war. Who gives a shit?
Plane, and it is huge, full of cool stuff.
And Julia touched it, even though she really, really shouldn't. Like Alex just blames Julia entirely.
The dive line, actually.
Yeah, so what you might realise here is that a couple of things, like, because we didn't get motivated by Brad to start with, we didn't have Alex proposing. And we also didn't get the option on whether to let the rebreather kick in before rushing up, and it made the decision for us in that one, so we didn't really have that influence.
Interesting. That's one of those things, like, you don't notice it, but your brain did, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's when you get a payoff later that it kind of makes you think, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Both seem out of their depth.
Wah wah.
And Julia, the love of Alex's life. If only she felt
Oh
the
yeah,
same.
there we go, because we didn't get the proposal.
What a frigid bitch, you might say. Well, that's a bit naughty, I would say. Let me write that down. You're in the bad boy column
And
now.
then there's Captain Fliss, strong, forthright, stubborn.
He doesn't like that. He's a bit judgmental himself, but then again, who isn't judgmental in this world of curating and or commentary? I don't know where I was going with that, really, but the pot's over now, so fuck it, I can say what I like. Doop 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 doop, see you next time, bye.
And some I think they may regret.